Hello everybody and welcome to Writing About Dance. So this is for Key Stage 3 students to start writing about dance, but this is actually some practice GCSE level questions that we're going to attempt at Key Stage 3. But you could also be watching this video if you wanted some more help at GCSE, sorry. We're going to be looking at the Section A questions of the paper. So here is our first exam question. Describe a motif you could choreograph for your dance. Your answer should refer to actions, space, and dynamics, and it's worth 3 marks. So always you are aiming to unpick the question to really understand what the examiner wants from you. So, describing a motif. First of all, you have to know what a motif is. That's what you're going to be describing. Then it says to choreograph for your dance. So this is a hypothetical dance, meaning that it's not something we know, we're making it up on the spot. Your answer should refer to actions, so you must know what actions are, space, you must know what space is, and dynamics. So, knowing what a motif is. So what is a motif? A motif is a movement phrase encapsulating an idea that is repeated and developed throughout a dance. So a motif, put really simply, is a movement phrase consisting of about 3 to 4 movements. And you set this motif and then you can repeat it and develop it throughout the dance. But first of all, this is just asking for your first motif. So about 3 to 4 movements. That is relating to your dance. And it must refer to action, space, dynamics. So how are we going to achieve all 3 marks? So we have kind of said it, but it must be a motif of about 3 to 4 movements. And this can't be random movements. You have to be able to read it and you have to be able to almost see somebody dancing it. It must be sequential. It must make sense. You also have to have named an action, an element of space, and a dynamic. We're going to have a look at my example now to give us some more ideas. But first, we're just going to make sure that we really understand what action, space, and dynamics are. So reading this answer, I have definitely wrote a sequential motif. I have definitely wrote 3 or 4 movements that make up the motif. And I have definitely referred to actions, space, and dynamics. 4 elements of space in there, 3 dynamics, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 actions. Okay, so a really clear motif. So that is my example answer. So I would like you now to write out the question and then write under it example answer and copy out my example answer, please. Off you go. Okay, once you have copied out the question and my example answer, you will then copy out the question again and write your own answer. So we've done it together, we've seen my example and we've broke down have I achieved all 3 marks. Now it's your turn to describe a motif you could choreograph for a dance. So remember this is made up and it must include 3 to 4 movements. Your answer should refer to actions, space and dynamics. So please pause the video now, make sure you've written out the question and my example and then write out the question and give it a go yourself. So write an example answer. Off you go. Okay, exam question number 2. So these questions, important to note that these questions link, okay? So the first motif that you have described in the first question is going to link into this question. So let's read this question, question number 2. Describe one way you could use relationships to develop your motif. So we've just identified our motif in that previous question. We are now having to develop that motif using relationships. So really important you know what develop means. Really important you know what relationships are. So motif and development is where you take a motif and you vary that motif. Okay, so changing, developing that motif. So it's ways in which a movement phrase can be varied. So you've got your set motif from the previous question, and now we're going to vary it and change it. And this question is asking us to vary and change it by using relationships. So how are we going to achieve full marks, which is 2 marks? So you must talk about your previous motif. You're not making up a new motif. You're talking about the previous motif you've written about in the first question. And of course, you are changing a moment, you are developing it, and of course you have to use relationships. You have to know a relationship. So that same question, let's just make sure that we know what relationships are. We're also going to imagine our dance is now a duet, because for relationships to work, it cannot be a solo dancer. It must be more than one dancer. So your dance is now a duet, meaning it's a dance with 2 dancers. Duet meaning a 2-dancer dance, and you are developing the motif by adding a relationship. So let's look at some of the relationships I have chosen. So first of all, relationships are the ways in which dancers interact, the connection between the dancers. So of course, this cannot be, like I said, a solo or a single dancer, because it's the way the dancers interact. So there must be more than one. I have chosen mirroring, action and reaction, contact, and formation. These are 4 relationships I have chosen because I know that we have previously studied these. So have a quick think of how we can define each of these relationships, or if you remember using any of these relationships in practical classes. So mirroring we have used in capoeira and in rock and roll. So it is performing the mirror image of somebody else. So it's performing something in perfect symmetry. That is mirroring. Action and reaction is where one dancer performs an action of some kind and another dancer reacts to that action. Now these movements do not have to be the same thing. It is an action and a reply with a reaction. And we use this relationship in capoeira, where we were dueling in the roja and one dancer had to act and one dancer had to react. Number 3, contact. So a contact relationship is anything in physical contact with each other. Again, we did this in rock and roll, so it could be any lifts, any counterbalances where you are physically touching the other dancer. And formations is a relationship, and it is the shape in which the dancers stand in. So are they dancing in a square, a circle, a semicircle formation? Now, some people get confused and think that's an element of space. It's not an element of space because it must have more than one dancer. So to form a formation, there must be more than one dancer. Therefore, it has to be a relationship. So a formation is the shape in which the dancers stand in. Okay, so now this is your chance to answer this question. You are describing one way you could use relationships to develop your motif. So how you're going to tackle this is you've got to use the previous motif. So have a read through of your previous answer. What motif did you describe? Now this dance has become a duet. Which moment are you going to change and what relationship are you going to add? Okay, writing out the question, please, and then writing out your answer. Okay, well done everybody. That is the end of this lesson. So that is your introduction into describing a motif, motif and development, and we've looked at relationships. Well done everybody. Remember to keep rewatching as many videos as you can to keep revising. Thank you, and email me of course if you have any questions.